Alright, in this video I'm going to talk about composition, my approach to composition, and we're going to start off with my tune Images, and that's from my instructional course called Mastering Chords in Harmony. Now I'm going to assume that you are familiar with the harmonized chord scale, like how to create chords with a scale, triads, seventh chords, and you know that you're familiar with chords with extensions, 9s, 11s, 13s, so forth. So I'm going to jump right into it. I'm just FYI here, I'm using a webcam, my webcam that I use for teaching, so that I can use this OBS software to go back and forth between my desktop here that's got my diagrams and my camera. Anyhow, so let's get into it. So what I've got pulled up here is my tune Images. Now let me talk a little bit about how the tune came to me and so forth. So a friend of mine, a student, had come over and he said, I'm going to switch camera views here. Let's see, he came over and he said, hey Derryl, you know, I'm working on this tune and I don't really know where to go from here, and you know, I said, well, let me see what you got. And so he just played me these two chords. And I said, okay, so if memory serves me right, I think I had wrote about 12 chords after that, or 10 chords after that, so about half of what we're going to go over today. And then after he went home, the rest of it came out. So what we're going to cover today is section 1 of Images. Now, the tune has 3 sections, and basically section 2 and section 3, they're the same as section 1, but I'm using other chord voicings, like different chord voicings. So for example, like you know, the first chord in Images is a B flat major 7, like this, and then I add the sharp 11 on top, right? So in section 2, whenever I repeat the chord changes, instead of playing this voicing, I play this voicing. Okay, this is like a B flat major 9 with the 13th up there. You got root 7, 9. There's the 3rd. There's the 13th. And then I think the next, section 3, what I play is this. Okay, and you're like, well, that's a D minor 7, second inversion. That's not a B flat major 7. But I'm thinking that that's part of. So if I had a bass player playing with me, he would be playing that B flat. So it's basically, I'm thinking of a rootless voicing, playing this D minor 7 on top. Okay. So yeah, because you know, once I wrote section 1, I thought, okay, now what? You know, I feel like I need to add more to it. And I thought, well, what I could do is play the changes over again, but just play different voicings, and it's almost going to sound like, you know, this is that I'm not, you know, playing the same progression, but in reality I am, you know, using the basically the same harmony, I suppose. So and then another thing that I wanted to tell you about this tune is that this tune, the way that I wrote it, I kind of went a lot on intuition and instinct. Sometimes I don't do that. Sometimes I start out with some parameters. Like, what do I mean by parameters? Like, okay, well, I'm going to take a 6251, and I'm going to start messing with that. And I'm going to get into that later. But this tune, like I said, the student of mine, he just showed me these chords, and then I just kind of let my intuition and ear, and I'm going to talk about some of the process that I can remember that I thought to myself, hey, why don't I do this or that, and so forth. All right, so I'm going to get back to where we can see the tune up here. So and this is the first time that I've actually analyzed section 1. So this was interesting for me to see some of the devices that were used that were that I didn't realize, but and it's pretty cool. But that doesn't surprise me that it was pretty cool. Not because it's me; it's because of all the music that I've listened to in my life. There was a time in my life where I worked this job down in South Florida, and I did irrigation maintenance at this retirement community, and my boss, he let me listen to my Sony Walkman while I was doing my work all day. So for 8 hours a day, I'm listening to the best improvisers and the best composers, every day, 8 hours a day. So, and that happened for probably over 6 years' time, and I'm sure that had a huge impact on me. All right. So getting into this, and that's what and I'm listening to music all the time. If I go to the grocery store, I'm listening to music on the way to the grocery store. Most of the time when I take a shower, I'll put music on. I've got a little boom box in the bathroom, and then it's Bluetooth to my phone, and I'll put some music on. Or if I'm, making, something to eat, I'm putting some music on. So I'm constantly listening to music. And I'm sure that, has some effect on me, and so that I've got all these like data libraries of music in my head that I'm pulling from, subconsciously. All right, so getting into the tune here. So we start out with this B flat major 7. Okay, and I'm thinking of that as the 6th chord from D minor, which is the next chord, D minor 9. Okay, and this right here, when the guy's name is Brian, when he showed me this, he just showed me these chords, and I later, like whenever I was messing around with it, added that sharp 11 because I like to add open strings when I can. This is a really good example to give it some color and make it a little more interesting. Okay, so we've got okay, so whenever I got here, what the thought that came into my mind is like, okay, where do I go? And I thought, well, why don't I go up a minor 3rd? Okay, now why did I go up a minor 3rd? Well, because I'm like, well, I want to modulate. And, when you look at the major scale and you harmonize it, there's no place where you have 2 minor 7th chords that are a minor 3rd apart. You have 2 minor 7th chords that are a whole step apart, right? So, so that's why I had that thought, like, okay, I want to modulate, and oftentimes when I modulate, I'll modulate in minor 3rds, like up a minor 3rd or down a minor 3rd, or in major 3rds, because I find that the music that I like does that oftentimes. All right, so I'm here at D minor 9, and then I go to this F minor 9. Okay, so whenever I get here, I do a typical, 2-5-1. So we've got F minor 9 to B flat 13, the 5, to E flat major 9, the 1. And just, I'll throw this out there that, you know, whenever I play this chord, this B flat 13, I was thinking that if I were to be playing this today at a gig or something, I may play this instead and raise that third to the 11. I think that gives it a more modern sound, but I'll put it back like that. That's how I played it in the video. Okay. All right, and then we get to this, the D7 sharp 9, and I just heard this in my head, you know. But going back and analyzing it, what's going on is, you know, when we think of, you know, hopefully you're familiar with progressions like 2-5-1s or 2-5-1-4 or 6-2-5-1 or 3-6-2-5-1-4. That's where you have progressions moving in fours. Okay, what do I mean by moving in fours? I mean, like, for example, let's usually whenever I want to give examples, I like to go to the key of C because it's really easy to think about, no sharps and flats and stuff. So if I'm in the key of C, right, and let's say that I'm on E minor 7, the 3 chord, okay, right? E minor 7 is 1. I'm going to come back here to where you can see me real good. So E minor 7, and we want to move in fours, right? So E minor 7, and then you have F major 7, and then G7, A minor 7. So we are going 3, 3, and then to 6, right? A minor 7 to, excuse me, E minor 7 to A minor 7. That's in fours. So you count the one that you're on as 1, right? E minor 7, F major 7, G7 to A minor 7. And then we want to go to 2, right? So if we're on A minor 7, and then you have B minor 7 flat 5, C major 7 to D minor 7. That's the 2. So A minor 7 going to D minor 7, we moved in fours, and so forth. So that's what I'm talking about, moving every fourth chord in the harmony to where you get things like 5-1, that's a cadence, and then 2-5-1, and then what is it? If we want to make 2-5-1 larger, we can put a 6 in front of the 2. And then we go 6-2-5-1, and then we can go to 4. If we want to make that larger, we can put a 3 in front of the 6 and go 3-6-2-5-1-4. All right. So anyhow, so after this 1, you know, typically you would go to the 4. However, you know, the 4, that's A flat major 7, okay? Now if I go up a tritone, I'm going to put the A flat note right here, right? If I go up a tritone, okay, then I could play a D7 or a D altered, in this case a D7 sharp 9. And so I'm using this technique called tritone substitution. That's where you take the chord and you move it up a tritone, an augmented fourth or a flat 5, however you want to view that interval. And you can play the chord there, you know, to give that type of color, you know, and that type of voice leading is nice. It gives a real smooth voice leading. Okay. So again, instead of going to the 4, I went to the tritone sub of 4, D7 sharp 9. I added that sharp 9 in there to give it some tension. Okay. And then from there, I went to this E flat 7 over D. This is E flat 7 third inversion. And it kind of, even though it's an E flat 7 third inversion, it also kind of sounds like a D as in dog, D flat 7, sharp 11. Okay. And I guess you have the 13 in there too as well. That B flat is the the 6 or the 13. So if I'm thinking of that as a 5, right, then I can think that we're in a new key, that we've modulated to a new key. So we have that 5 and that going to this 1. Okay? And again, you know, this is just something that I heard in my head, and just going back and trying to make sense of it, analyzing it. What's kind of interesting about this is, you know, the bass movement. For one, you know, if you look at the bass movement here, the lowest note, E flat, then that goes to D flat. So, and I like to do that where I have like chromatic bass movement. Okay. So we have that 5-1. Okay, now I go back to the original key. All right, and then do the same thing I did before. Modulate up there to F minor 9. Now this is interesting. Okay, so right here you have a C add 9 over E, or you could look at it as an E minor 7 flat 6. That's kind of how I'm viewing it here. And this E minor 7 flat 6, some people would call this an E minor 7 sharp 5. I like to call it a E minor 7 flat 6 because of the scale that it would come from. But I'm kind of, you know, thinking this is going to be a tritone sub of the B flat 7, right? Because F minor 7 is the 2, B flat 7 would be the 5, but if you go up a tritone, right, you would have E, okay? Let's look at how all these notes relate to B flat. So, you know, we know E is the tritone or the augmented fourth or the flat 5. C is the 2 or the 9. D is the 3rd, and G is the 13. So I'm kind of thinking this E minor 7 flat 6 is functioning as a B flat 7 without the B flat in the bass, and it's a tritone sub, you know. Take that off of there, and this goes to my 1 there. Really nice voice leading, and it, you know, it gets you away from that whole, you know, old sound of, you know, this. You know, that totally sounds modern, you know, like modern classical. Right? Look at this, F going to E, the bass going down a half step. The tenor, A flat, okay, that moves up a major 3rd, and then the E flat moves down a half step, and then the G stays common. That's real good voice leading there. All right, and then we've got that E flat major 9, the 1. Okay, and then we go back to that D7, that's the tritone sub of A flat major 7, the 4 chord. Okay, now here I take a turn, you know, I do something different than I did earlier in the piece. I play this G minor 9, but now when you think of like, where does G sit within E flat major? Well, G would be the 3rd of E flat major. And the 3rd mode we know is Phrygian. So normally, if you're going to have a 9, you know, it'd be a G minor flat 9, but that's not going to sound so good. So I'm playing a G minor 9. And you could think of that as, you know, Dorian, or you could even think of it as Aeolian. Probably Aeolian would be closer to what it should be. Now, why do I say that? Well, because when you think of, and I've got Dorian up here, but be that as it may, If we look at G Phrygian, for example, right? G Phrygian's like this, okay? G Phrygian has the flat 2, it has the flat 6. So that's why I said that whenever I played this chord, or chose this chord, it'd probably be more accurate to say that it's coming from Aeolian, because why? Aeolian has that flat 6, whereas Dorian has a natural 6. So really the only thing that changed was the location of the 2 or the 9. So I think I'm going to put that there in this here. So I'm going to, okay, Aeolian. All right. And I'm going to save that. Save. Okay. So yeah, and I kind of view that as what's called modal interchange, where you borrow from another key. In this case, let's see, G Aeolian would come from the key of B flat major. So down a fourth, borrowing from a key down a fourth. See, what you can do is you can take a key that you're in, like in this case we're in E flat major, and then if you wanted to, and you write out all the chords in E flat major, then right beside that write out, say, all the chords in E flat Dorian, and then right beside that write out all the chords in E flat Phrygian, and so on and so forth, right? And now you have like 7 sets of chords, and we're just talking about the chords generated within a major scale. You could pull from other keys, or excuse me, other scales, you know, like melodic minor. You could do that with melodic minor, harmonic minor, harmonic major, double harmonic major, you know, so, and then you could borrow from other keys. Okay. Let's see here. All right, so now after this G minor 9, then I go to the 5 of E flat major. Typically when you do this modal interchange, you only have like one chord borrowed from a parallel key, like I did here, because if you borrow 2 chords from another key, then that's really, from what I've been taught about composition, that is that would constitute a key modulation. When you only do it like for one chord, then that's just that's called a modal interchange, or that you're borrowing from a parallel key. And then we go back to the 1. Okay, now this is interesting here. So after this 1, I go down here to this D minor 9, and I'm thinking a key modulation here. And how this works so smooth is that, in the key of E flat major, you have a D minor 7 flat 5. And, so notice that, for 1, I don't have a flat 5 here, but I do have a natural 2 or 9. Okay, whereas Locrian, which would be off the 7th degree, would have a flat 2. So you have like some common tones that would be from the chord that would normally go there. And that's why it sounds so smooth, right? Okay, so we've got 2, and then this D flat, or the E flat 7 third inversion, which I'm kind of viewing as a D flat 7 sharp 11, add 6. I'm kind of viewing this as the tritone sub of G7, my 5 chord. So here's another 2-5-1, but tritone sub 5. Okay, but instead of going to 1 major, I'm going to 1 minor, right? So in this case, the C minor 7 with a flat 6, and this also could be viewed as an A flat add 9 chord, but I'm viewing it as the C minor 7 flat 6. So you have this interesting sounding 2-5-1, Okay. And then I go up a tritone. Okay, so that's a tritone from the C going to G flat. Okay, and then now we're back to C add 9 but major. This could be viewed as a C add 9 or an E minor 7 flat 6. Okay, now to C minor. Okay, and then the tritone sub of the 4. I'm playing this B7 sharp 11. Okay. So, you know, and then the tune continues, you know, playing basically it's the same harmony. Okay, but you know, I'm using I go into like more like Holdsworth type voicings where you know, these chords are more from like I would say my Scott Henderson type you know, voicings, and like Scott Henderson, Pat Metheny type stuff. So the guys that I listen to as far as guitar players, my favorites are Scott Henderson, Pat Metheny, Alan Holdsworth, and Frank Gambale. And anyway, so that's where a lot of, you know, like this music that comes out of me, that's where it comes from, listening to them. And when I say Frank Gambale, I'm also talking about like Chick Corea, because I listened to the Chick Corea albums that he was on. Like he was on, Light Years, Eye of the Beholder. Let's see, what was the other one? Behind the Mask. And there was another one. I can't remember what it was, but I think he was on 4 of the studio albums, and then I think they put out a couple live albums, and then you had I want to say you had maybe a 5th studio album, because in the early 2000s, Chick reunited with the Electric Band, and they put out some album, and I don't have that one, but anyhow. But all right, so now I want to switch gears and talk about some other concepts. So basically, what I was showing you there had a lot to do with, you know, writing, you know, using like, you know, 2-5-1 type things, you know, chord progressions moving in 4s, or, you know, that type of movement, and with tritone substitutions and things. So another concept that I like to use is like a modal pedal type concept, to where I'll take a chord voicing. Okay, like let's say I take this chord voicing right here, and come back here. So so we take this chord voicing. We could look at this as like a G major sus2, or a D major sus4. For example, if that's G major, right, and we take the 3rd, all right, and we lower it. Okay, that's G major sus2. Or if we thought of this as D major, right, we could take the 3rd, this would be an F sharp in that case, all right, and raise it up to the 4th. Okay, so however you want to look at it, I'm going to think of it as G major sus2, right? And then you pick a key. Let's pick the key of C. That's my favorite key. So, and then what you do is you take this chord voicing and you just run it up the fretboard in the key that you want. So when I say run it up, you know. Okay, so that's all the chords that you're dealing with, right? So just real quick, you know, if you're in the key of C, you think, well, after G, right, you have A, and then after A, you have B, and then after D, you have E, and so forth. And you do that right up the neck to get all your different chords. So, you know, once you have all your different voicings, okay, then you start thinking about like a melody. So if I did something like, and this comes from my tune Visions and Dreams, from the verse. No, it's from the chorus. Yeah. So it'd be something like, right? So we just plug in those chords. See? Now this chord right here, okay, I'll talk a little bit about that. So all the chords that I played, except for this chord, all those other chords were in the key, and the only thing out of key, if you will, with this chord is that D flat. Okay? So the idea goes like this. So the dissonant sounding chord would be the same thing like when you do a 2-5-1 and you go on 2, right? And then 5, and we have this, you know, E flat or D sharp in there, right? That's your dissonant note, and then 1. So this chord is, you know, acting as that dissonant note, kind of like my 5, as it were. Okay? So hopefully that makes sense. So again, just to recap, you take a chord voicing and you find all the chords up the neck, right? Vertically, linearly, however you want to think about it, right? And then find a pedal, okay? That's something else I didn't talk about here. So, you know, if we're in the key of C, right? What is E? E is the third, right? And what's the third mode? Phrygian. So whenever I pedal this E, okay, it makes all my chords sound Phrygian. Okay. And then again, you just find a little melody and just plug in the chords that go with it. Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about is this is a pretty interesting concept. I got to remember to turn that diagram back on. But sometimes when I want to compose and I don't have any music in my head, but I'm like, I want to compose something, right? So, you know, one of the techniques that I'll use is I'll just pick a standard, a jazz standard, and I'll start manipulating it and changing things. Now, I'm not talking about the melody of a jazz standard. I'm talking about the chord progression. So, but you know, there's a lot. I mean, there's the jazz standards. They all use these, you know, very common chord progressions. So, anyway, so I could have said, well, I just take a common chord progression. I could have just said that, but usually what I'll do is I'll go to a standard, or maybe it's a standard that I'm working on or something, and I'll just start messing with it. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. So let's say that I picked some standard, right? And I need to go back here to my diagram here. So I pick some standard, and it starts out, let's say, with a 2-5-1. Okay? let's see, 2, 5, 1, like this. I'm just going to use just some standard voicings here, drop 2 and drop 3. Okay, well, you know, I'll just make them all drop 2 here. So you know you have, right? Okay. So one of the things that I like to do is reharmonize the chord progression. So these chords come from the key of C, right? So whenever I reharmonize, I'll pick an interval, like let's say a step, a diatonic step. How about we take every chord and we move it up a diatonic step in the harmony. So instead of playing the 2 chord, let's play the 3 chord instead. Okay, instead of playing the 5 chord, okay, let's play the 6 chord. And then instead of playing the 1, let's play the 2. Okay, let's hear how that sounds. Okay, how does that sound different then? Okay, well, one of the differences is, you know, you have different chord types now. Now, this chord, instead of being dominant, it's minor, and then this chord, instead of being major, it's minor, right? So now we're going to do some more tweaking here. So this 3 chord comes from the Phrygian mode. So let's think about, like, what makes Phrygian Phrygian? Well, you've got the flat 6 in there, right? So why don't we move the 5th to the flat 6? What else does Phrygian have? Phrygian has a flat 2. So we could replace the flat 7 with the flat 2 or the flat 9. Now we have this chord. Okay, now we go to that A minor 7. A minor 7 comes from Aeolian. So let's take the 5th and move it up to the flat 6. Okay, I'm going to add the 5th up here. Okay, and now this 2 chord, right? This comes from Dorian, so let's take the 5th again and move it up to the Dorian 6th there. So now we have this type of okay, and that sounds totally different than we have. Okay, so that's another compositional technique that I'll use. Is I'll take a standard and I'll reharmonize it, and oftentimes you know, by the time I get into the tune about 8 bars, the radio in my head turns on, and then I start going in my own direction and just put the tune, the jazz standard away. That was just kind of a way to trick myself into composing and to get the, you know, the spark of inspiration happening, and you know, get all the pistons firing and the radio in my head turned on, as it were. All right, so I want to talk about another concept that's you know, very similar, that involves a new tune of mine. Let me see. Select all fretboards. Select all notes. Okay. So in this new tune of mine, I'm going to talk about it a little bit here. I don't have it posted anywhere because I'm still working on it, but you know, I had sat down and I thought to myself, well, I want to write a tune, but I don't have any music playing in my head. You know, what, I'm going to come back here. I just need to remember to turn that diagram back on. So I thought, Well, I'll take all the things you are and I'll start messing with that, at least the first, several bars. So all the things you are is in the key of, well, it starts out in the key of A flat, and you have the 6, 2, 5, 1, 4. I'll just stop right there. So it's a standard type progression, 6, 2, 5, 1, 4. And I thought, well, instead of, creating a progression or messing around with a progression in the key of A flat, what if I took that progression that I just played and instead of A flat, how about A flat harmonic major, right? And then I thought, okay, so, and then why don't I take, so I'll take a 6, 2, 5, 1 in harmonic major, A flat harmonic major, and then I'll move every chord up a diatonic step, so then basically I ended up with this chord progression. Okay. And that became like the intro. So what I want to do is to illustrate this a little bit more in detail, let's convert this to the key of C. We'll transpose it to the key of C. So let me show you something. So if we take like these drop 2 chords, okay, from the key of C. Okay. Now remember how I said, well, I want instead of a major key, I want harmonic major. Well, harmonic major, that scale is like the major scale, but it has a flat 6. So what you would do is you'd take your chords, right, and lower all the A's to A flat, because A is the 6th of C major, right? Okay, so we just come here, okay, there's an A, we've got to lower that. So this becomes from a D minor 7 to a D minor 7 flat 5. And, okay, the 4 chord, right, becomes from an F major 7 to an F minor major 7. Let's see, okay, we have this A minor 7. This becomes a A flat major 7 with a sharp 5. And then we have our B minor 7 flat 5. Okay, so now here's all of our chords here. I'll map them out like, okay, C major 7, that's the 1, right? Okay, 1. And then the D minor 7 flat 5 is the 2. And then the 3 chord, E minor 7. And then the 4, F minor major 7. Okay, the 5, G7. Oops, let me go back here. Okay, the 6 is A flat major 7, sharp 5. Okay, and then the 7 is B minor 7 flat 5. Okay, so again, I just took the key of C and then I laid out all the chords in the key of C, and then I took all my A flats and I dropped them a half step. So D minor 7 became D minor 7 flat 5. The F major 7 became F minor major 7. And then the A flat, or excuse me, the A minor 7 became A flat major 7 sharp 5. And we got this A right here needs to be lowered. So this B minor 7 flat 5 becomes B diminished 7th. Okay, B diminished 7th. All right, so remember I said, okay, I wanted to take that 6-2-5-1 progression and I wanted to mess with it. So I said, okay, instead of playing the 6, I'm going to play the 7 chord. So, and like I said, you know, we've transposed this to the key of C, so it's easier to think about, right? So I thought, well, this B diminished seventh chord right here, I'm like, this is so recognizable. What can I do to it to disguise it a little bit or make it sound a little different? So I thought, why don't I raise up the soprano, the D note, to the next note in the scale, okay? So when we're thinking about C harmonic major, right? Again, that's C, D, E, F, G, A flat, B, C. So after D, we know is E, right? Okay, so now we have this B diminished 7 sus 4. I think that's what that would be. Or 11. You know, maybe it's yeah, it's a sus because we remove the third out of there, so it'd be sus 4. Okay, so we start out with this. Okay, so now we want to go to the so in our original progression it was 6, 2, 5, 1, right? So we, instead of playing 6, we played 7. Instead of playing 2, we want to play the 3 chord. What's the 3? Okay, the 3 is E minor 7. So I'm going to pause that idea now. I'm going to share something with you here. So what I wanted to create is a type of progression that used step movement, bass movement instead of root 4th, 5th movement, okay? So what I mean is, instead of the bass doing something like this, right, I wanted it to move more stepwise. So what you can do if you use inversions, right, I'm playing a 3 6 2 5 1 right here just for this demonstration. You know, you got the 3, and then when you go to the 6, you can just play a second inversion. I keep forgetting to do this. You can play a second inversion of the 6, so you're not going down here like this, right? Because we want the bass to move in a scalular way, right? So we can use inversions to do that. So we've got E minor 7 to A minor 7 to D minor 7 to the 5, G7, that's the second inversion of the G7, to C major 7. So instead of doing this, we would have this type of sound. Right? Step motion. Okay, now getting back to my tune. So that's what I want. I want the bass to move in a stepwise fashion. Okay, for this particular part of the tune. Okay, so we got the 7 chord, you know, this diminished, B diminished sus 4. Now we want to go to the 3 chord, remember? So the 3 chord is what? It's E minor 7. So we want to find the E minor 7 closest to this. We're using an inversion. We've got this second inversion, E minor 7. Okay, and then we want to go to, let's see, 7, 3, and then we want to go to the 6th chord. Okay, because in our original progression it went, what was it, 6? Instead of playing the 6, we're playing the 7. Then it went 2, so instead of playing the 2, we're playing the 3. Instead of playing 5, we want to go to the 6. So that's going to be A flat major 7, sharp 5. So A flat major 7, sharp 5. Okay. Oh, let's see, 7, and then this is the 3. E minor 7 over B, and that's the 3 chord. Okay. And then we got the 6 chord, which is A flat major 7, sharp 5. Okay. All right, so now we want to play, instead of the 1, we want to go to 2, so that would be a D minor 7 flat 5. D minor 7 flat 5. Now, whenever I played that, you know, I've got this, right? So I've got so whenever I played that D minor 7 flat 5, I'm like, I'm not really hearing that chord there. Like, in other words, I don't want that. I want a different sound there. And my intuition and instinct told me that I'm hearing in my head this chord, because by this time the radio in my head's turned on and telling me what to do. So I'm hearing this type of movement. Oh, excuse me, it should be, that's my Holdsworth influence coming. So, okay, so what is this? What's going on here? Well, remember, we're in the key of C, okay? So in the key of C, this right here is a G flat major over G bass note. So let's just put this G to G flat. So here we have a G flat major chord, right? How does that relate to C? Well, it's a tritone. So I'm hearing this tritone sub in my head with a flat 9 or flat 2 in the bass. See, that G is a flat 2 or flat 9. And in this genre of music, you know, putting extensions in the bass, the 9, the 11, the 13, or the 2, the 4, the 6, you know. In this case, we have a flat 2 or the flat 9 in the bass, right? So, okay, now I hear, okay, I should go to the 2, but instead of going to a D minor 7 flat 5, see, right there, the 2 is D minor 7 flat 5. If I go to that chord, it just sounds like it can't rest there because of that flat 5. So in the soprano, so I can lower that flat 5 to the 4 or the 11. So now I have this, let's see, where am I? There it is. Okay, now we've got to put some melody to it, right? So how do I do that? One thing I like to do when possible is, like, in this case, you know, I'm barring my finger. I'll bar my finger, my first finger over, so I can grab that note. So I got this, right? So I'm going to 4, flat 5, 4. Okay? And then whenever I go to this E minor 7, I can go, I'm going D, G. That's my initials. Okay, and then when I go to that A flat major 7 sharp 5, I want to keep that same motif, and so I'll bar my index finger over and grab this D note here. Okay, and then, so now I'm going B flat, G flat, and then we have that D minor 11. So now we have okay. Now you know, my actual tune is actually down in A flat, so down a major third. So, but that kind of gives you an idea. Let's see. All right, last concept that I want to talk about in this video is, I'll just leave that there, is this pitch axis concept. So back in '96, I was writing this tune, Visions and Dreams, and I had read this article in one of the guitar magazines, and they were interviewing Joe Satriani, and he was talking about this pitch axis concept. of where he would have a pedal, but he's changing the harmony on top, right? So I thought, okay, let me try that. So I started out with this voicing here, this B flat major 9 voicing here. And so then I thought, all right, so I want to change the harmony on top. I want to keep this B flat going. So what did I do? I took the tenor and I lowered it a half step, right? And I took the soprano and I raised it a half step. Right? Okay, and then so now what I did was I still got that here. Let me hopefully I don't run out of space. No, I'm not. Okay. So I got the B flat major 9, and then I go to A flat over B flat. So let's say this was B flat Lydian sound. Okay. And this could be like B flat Mixolydian, or it could even be B flat Aeolian, because we're talking about the scale has to have a flat 7, a 9, and an 11 in there. And like B flat Aeolian or Mixolydian would fit that criteria. Or even B flat Dorian. I could play B flat Dorian over that. I forgot what I played in Visions and Dreams, like when I was soloing over this, but so you got the B flat major 9 to A flat over B, B flat, and then I go so I go to this G minor 7 flat 5 over B flat, or you could call it a B flat minor 6, however you want to view that. So look at what happened. I lowered the tenor a half step. I lowered the, or I raised, so you got contrary motion here. I raised the alto up a half step, and then I raised the soprano up a whole step. And then from this chord here, I went to this chord. Okay, so I just lowered the tenor a half step, and I kept those, the alto and the soprano, the same. Okay, and the last chord in this progression is a C minor 7 flat 5 over B flat. So you have this type of thing, this type of progression. Okay. All right. So hopefully